Hello everyone and welcome to another How Lou Sees It review. Today I'm reviewing Star Trek Chrono-Trek, and this is published by Looney Labs and is for 2 to 6 players and can last anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. And this is a game all about Star Trek and time travel. So if you like both those things or one of those things, this may be the game for you. And of course, brought to you by Looney Labs, it is a game of constant flux. So I know some about Star Trek. I don't know a ton about Star Trek. I've watched it here and there throughout my life, but I, am no super fan by any means. So I did play this with someone who does really like Star Trek a lot, and they just had a ball. They really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed probably even more than the game, because they're not usually one who likes games like Flux that kind of change and is a little chaotic. But because of the theme on this one with Star Trek and everything, they just had really fun with the actual cards. And so that, I think, comes through really well with the game. If you're not a fan of Star Trek, or I guess if you're not, into it a lot or don't know much about it, the game has a very strong timeline and time travel element to it. So if you enjoy that element or theming of a game, I think you'll really enjoy this as well. So first of all, the game comes with a bunch of cards and a rules thing of rules. And so you have your action cards, and there's actually a bunch of different types of cards in this deck. So there's action cards, power action, inverters, which allow you to change the timeline. All sorts of different things within the deck. We'll take a quick look at some of those. But there's also a fairly large deck here of Starfleet identity files. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to set up each game just like this. So this is the timeline. So we go ahead and you can look at the first card here. They make it quite easy for setup. You're going to make sure that you're on the kind of blue, purple, and the light blue sides of all the cards. And you just put them in order. You go from A1 to A9 here, and then B1 to B9, etc. You have 4 rows just like that. And the timeline starts here in the top left and goes across in order. So we go from Life on Earth begins to here, Temporal Anomaly has yet begun. Voyager returns after 23 years. So this is the very end of the timeline there. And throughout the game, everyone is during setup. After you've set that up, you're going to figure out how you're going to play or who you're going to play with. There's a few different ways to do that. So you'll notice there's a little dot up here. So they kind of have some different complexities to them, or some are easier than others. So definitely recommended for first game to play with these ones here that only have 1 dot. And then you can play, some with 2 dot, and it just kind of helps the game be a little more balanced. And then there's some other ones that get more difficult or more complicated. 3, and you get into some 4s as well. And all sorts of characters from the shows. Really cool. You got the Borg here, and the Romulans, nasty folk, and we have Q, the famous Q. Okay, so you want to start initially with these, but then you can actually also just shuffle these up, and with the dots, depending on what character you choose or you get for that game, it has a mechanic in here that helps kind of offset some of that. So if you have like a more difficult card, I can't remember exactly. I think you get to draw some more cards or something like that. But it helps kind of balance that out. So tons and tons of characters. That's one plus, really big plus about this game, I think, is the vast amount of characters that you have. So if you compare this to Flux or something, who you are is really your goal of how you're going to win the game. So 7 of 9 here wants the timeline to show the Battle of Wolf 359, and they want that 2366 on the blue side. So if we find it over here, 2366 is right here. So they want that face up like that. If it's face down like this and it's 2366 prime, then that would not meet that part of that victory condition, right? So they want it so this side face up. So she's got that going for her. But she needs 2394, Borg destroyed by Voyager. So we need to look at 2394, which you come down here. So she wants this one actually on this side. So she's going to try to get that flipped to that side, and she needs to have an artifact. It's one of these green cards in the deck over here, and she needs a mobile emitter. Okay. So if on her turn, at the start of her turn, she has all of these conditions are met, then she will be victorious and win the game. So that's pretty much it. And as far as the cards go, actions cards allow you to maybe obtain some artifact cards. You can name a fracture inverter, find it and get it. They help you kind of acquire cards and do certain things. Power actions are very powerful actions, and you'll have to meet certain conditions to be able to do it. The assignment cards are also pretty powerful. You can draw 2 cards with it, but if you also have these 2 artifacts, you get a bonus kind of action to it. So then the yellow cards are really one of the key things in how you manipulate this timeline. And so if I want to play this inverter, it says flip any linchpin. So this, I can play it and I can flip any linchpin. The linchpins, it's color coded here, but it's also shown here in the top left. So any linchpin, I can come to this and flip it. Now, as we're talking about time travel, if you change the events of something, you know that it's going to affect other things going on, right? So when I flip this, it shows me that this is going to flip C7 and D1. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that over and find C7 and D1. So C7, and I flip. It's going to remind me here, so I'm going to look at it first. Flips if this is that is on prime. So I just flipped it over, so that symbol is shown. So I'm going to flip it. Okay, now I'm going to go look at the other one, D1. So D1 is right down here. And so now this is an or statement here. So it's this or this. Because we flipped this one over, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. You have to be careful because some of them are and symbols. So see, this will only flip back if this symbol and this symbol are showing that. If one of those is the case, it wouldn't flip over yet. So now that this is flipped over, it's not quite as simple as turning this back. They're going to have to make sure the other condition is met as well. So, and as you're going through the other card in here, oh, there's one right there, is an event, and you have to play it, and then you get to draw another card. But this is flip the latest anchor point. So the Devron anomaly is something in this game that is going to possibly trigger the end of the game. There are a few players like Q here actually wants this to continue, and he wants to push it all the way back to the starting card, because if this anchor point gets flipped over, game over. And Q would win in this case, or there is a card in the deck here that says you join, you make an alliance basically with Q, and if that ends, you're able to win as well. But whenever those cards are drawn, you start here at this one here. Temporal Anomaly has not yet begun. Well, when that event comes, it's going to flip over. we would go, they have that. And so next time it's going to come and you're going to look for that next anchor point and it will flip over. And so it's showing this Temporal Anomaly expanding, expanding, expanding until it gets here. If no one is playing Q, then everyone, the game would end and no one would win unless they had that card. So that's kind of how the game plays out. There's ways to kind of take artifacts from other players, search and find your needed artifacts in here. Another card that may come up are these fracture cards. And whenever you play a fracture, you actually get a bonus. You get to draw a card. And these are pretty powerful in affecting the timeline. So if you look at this one here, it says pandemic terminates human race. That is pretty significant, I would say. And pretty interesting with what's going on in the world that I would have drawn that randomly. But here it is. Earth's population wiped out by Zindi. I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. Bioweapon. And you can see there's restrictions on it here. Playable only if these two sides have been flipped over and they're on that side. But I would find the 2004 and put it on there, which is this A6 here. And what that does is I would put it on top of that, and the timeline is now fractured here. It's broken very badly. So anyone who has like a winning condition after this, they would not be able to win the game. This keeps people from winning while it's out there if their required events listed on their card, like this one, occur after that year, 2004. So, yeah, so if this is out here, I can't win until I remove that somehow, okay? And once those are out, there's different ways you can get rid of those, so. But those are some of the cards and the actions there. Again, I think this game is really fun, and I think it's enjoyable. I like the timeline, how it works with the flipping and the rippling down effect, and then you're trying to restore things, and then you get to that point like, okay, I'm gonna do this. You get everything set up so that you can win on your next turn, but of course then someone has to go and, you know, flip this over, and no longer the Grand Naga Squark buys Tarek Noor, and you're like, no! And that ripples something else, and it's pretty funny. There's a lot of laughs, and it's a good time. So that is Star Trek Chrono-Trek. Again, this is from Looney Labs game for 2 to 6 players. Really good time. A lot of variability with the characters. And the Star Trek, the amount of Star Trek like lore and everything that was put into this is just very extensive. And it has, I mean, all sorts of cool things and references to all the different shows. And so it's really fun to kind of play around with that. And, you know, you read, you know, these different events that are changing the timeline, and had a really good time with it. Again, it's very kind of chaotic in nature, but that's that fun kind of chaoticness that Looney Labs is famous for. And it's fun. It's a good time. And that is Star Trek Chrono-Trek.